Hello and welcome to Anytime Yoga. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. Before jumping into our practice, I'm going to introduce our first UPA, Universal Principle of Alignment, and that is open to grace. We'll do that, focus on that a couple of weeks. Just a general overview. For UPAs, we have 5 UPAs, and we're only going to be introduced to some of them during this practice, during this session. And the first one that we focus on the most is open to grace. And so this is setting your foundation for a pose, rooting into your foundation, making sure that whatever a part of your body is rooting into your mat, that's your foundation. So downward facing dog, we're rooting our hands into our mat. For warrior 1, warrior 2, we're rooting our feet into our mat. And it's making sure that we have a strong, firm, energized connection to foundation before moving into a pose, so that we're safe, that we're aligned, and we can be really secure in moving into that pose. And it's helpful also to think on the mindful heart side of the UPA. It's not just the physical alignment, it's also your heart alignment. So thinking off your mat, where's your foundation? Where are you rooting into? Where is your security as you move into your day, as you live into your values? So we're bringing the heart and the physical part of alignment into our yoga practice. We can also think of open to grace as inner body brightness. So lifting the crown of your head, softening the boundaries of your pose. So we're not just rigid, we're softening. We're rooting and softening. All right, I'll get into it a little bit more next week, but we'll start with that. Go ahead and find a comfortable seated pose, either kneeling over a block or seated cross-legged on blankets or blocks. We want to make sure that your hips are about the same height as your knees or a little bit higher. And let's start with our meditation. So root your sits bones into your mat, get strong through your core, long through your spine, shoulder blades on your back, shining bright through the crown of your head, palms facing down for more groundedness or up for more openness. Close your eyes or lower your gaze and begin to notice your breath. Invite your breath past your throat, past your heart, deep down into your belly. Check in with your heart, noticing your feelings and emotions. Noticing with curiosity, acknowledging without judgment. Check in with your body. Notice how you feel physically. Notice any discomfort or dis-ease, and send your breath to those parts of your body for support. And then check in with your mind. Notice where your thoughts have drifted, and with kindness and encouragement, self-compassion, invite your thoughts back to your mat, back to this present moment. I invite you to set an intention, a word or a phrase you can return to for encouragement and self-compassion, whether you are on your mat or off your mat. On your next breath, raise your hands above your head, meeting your palms together, and exhale your hands to your heart. Let's join our voices together for 1 Om. Take a deep inhale. Exhale HA. And inhale for Om. Gently release your hands, softly blink open your eyes, roll your shoulders, turn your head side to side, and meet back in center. Inhale your hands high, exhale, twist over to your right, staying long through your spine, shining bright through the crown of your head. Turn your chin toward your shoulder. You want to focus more on lengthening your spine rather than trying to twist really hard. With each deep inhalation and exhalation, you might notice that you twist a little deeper each time. And back to center, over to your left. Same thing here. Lengthen through your spine, shine bright through the crown of your head. Turn your chin toward your shoulder. And back to center. Exhale your hands to your heart. Go ahead and transition to tabletop pose, setting your blocks to the side. You can have a blanket under your knees if that is helpful, or else set your blanket to the side. You can also use a towel. Open to grace. Let's practice that now by setting our foundation. So you want to root each finger and knuckle into your mat. Root your whole palm into your mat. Spread your fingers wide. Shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. Shoulder blades on your spine. Then begin to move through cat, cow. Breathing deeply. Let your breath guide your movement. Coming back to neutral, add a variation by looking side to side, looking back at one hip, and then over to your other hip, kind of wagging your tail, creating a little more movement. And then if you want to add even more movement, meet back in neutral, then sink your hips back toward your heels, your other heel, up and around. So you're kind of moving in a horseshoe type motion. One more breath, meet back in neutral spine. Take a breath here in tabletop. Walk your spider fingers out in front of you. Coming into puppy pose, soften your heart toward your mat. Draw your lower ribs back toward your spine and soften your heart again. Take a deep breath. Expanding out through your kidneys, filling your kidneys with your breath. And inhale, rise up. Walk your spider fingers off your mat to your right. Soften your heart, coming into side puppy, staying long through your side bodies. And then back to center and over to your left. Soften your heart. And back to center. Root your hands into your mat again. Set your foundation. Open to grace. Draw your chest forward, coming into modified plank. Shoulder blades on your spine. As we lower down, keep your elbows beside your ribs. Land first with your heart and then your hips. Root the tops of your feet into your mat. Shoulder blades on your back. Inhale, your heart up. hovering your hands over your mat, coming into Cobra Pose. And exhale, lower back down. Inhale, rise up and sink back into puppy. Let's do that again. Inhale your chest forward. Shoulder blades on your spine, lower down. Chest, then hips, root the tops of your feet. Variation of Cobra, spider fingers off your mat. Inhale, using the strength of your core. Inhale your heart off your mat. Turning your gaze forward. And lower back down. Root your hands beside your ribs. Rise up and sink back into puppy. Beautiful. Go ahead and do that one more time. Flow with your breath. Choose your variation of Cobra. Rising up and meeting back into puppy pose. Rise up onto your knees, set your props to the side, and then meet back in tabletop pose. Walk your hands out a bit, prepping for modified bridge, or not modified bridge, modified chaturanga. And then lift your knees off your mat, coming into plank. There we go. So we're moving from modified plank to plank. There we go. I got the words. Root down, shoulder blades on your back, and then lift your hips high into downward facing dog. Here we want to check our foundation. So you're rooting in, foundation first, open to grace. Spread your fingers wide, root each knuckle finger into your mat. Then get long from your wrists through your shoulders, out your hips. A nice long trajectory. We don't want to be rounded, drawing forward, but we want to soften heart to mat, lower heart to mat. Bend your knees as much as you need to. Walk the dog, moving your hips side to side. And then inhale your right leg high. Three-legged dog. Bring your knee to your nose. Take as many steps as you need to bring your right foot between your hands. Root down, get strong in your legs. Rise up. Crescent lunge. Front knee over front ankle. Extended back leg. Cactus arms, bend your elbows to your shoulders. Rise back up. Beautiful. Flow with cactus arms. Inhale your hands high. Exhale your hands to your heart. Draw your torso forward. Twist to your right, bringing your outer left elbow to your outer right knee. Open your arms wide and rise up, staying twisted. And meet back in center. Open to your left, arms wide. Back to center. And exhale your hands down to your mat. Root down, step back. Downward facing dog, second side. Inhale your left leg high. Bring your knee to your nose. Root your foot between your hands. Root down. Pause here. Make sure your legs are strong. You have a firm foundation. Then rise up slowly all the way to standing. Cactus arms. Sometimes moving from down dog through lunge up to crescent lunge, I can feel a little lightheaded. So if you feel a little lightheaded, take that slowly. Take as many steps as you need to. Pause where you need to. Listen to your body. Inhale your hands high. Exhale your hands to your heart center. Draw your chest forward. Twist to your left. Bring your outer right elbow to your outer left knee. Open through your arms. And then rise up, staying twisted. And come back to center. Open wide to your right. And back to center. Exhale your hands down to your mat. Root down, step back. Downward facing dog. Bend your knees as much as you can. Look at the top of your mat. Step forward or hop forward into forward fold. draping your upper body over your lower body, clasping your elbows with your hands, swaying side to side, nodding your head yes, shaking your head no, nodding your head yes again. Then gently release your hands. Bring your hands to your block. Inhale, halfway lift. Long spine. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, reverse your swan dive, rising all the way up to standing. Clasp your hands above your head. Micro back bend. Back to center. Crescent to your right. Crescent to your left. And back to center. Release your hands to your heart or to your hips or to Tadasana, mountain pose, palms facing forward. Check your alignment. Root down with your feet. Set your foundation. Lift and spread your toes and set your toes back down. Strong legs, strong core. Make sure that your hips aren't jutting forward like we're standing in a grocery store line. Draw your hips back. Root down, shoulder blades on your back. Shine bright through the crown of your head. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Take this moment to return to your intention. Offering yourself your intention with kindness. Offering that same intention with kindness toward those around you. On your next breath, gently release your hand, softly blink open your eyes. All right, we're going to move into chair pose. So a couple of alignment cues. You can practice this in two different ways. You can practice it traditionally with your big toes together, or you can practice it with your feet hip distance apart. And I'm talking about like your hip bone, not the sides. So hip bone, feet are hip distance apart. So hips over knees, knees over ankles. And you want your feet and legs to be parallel. So you don't want your toes coming in or your toes opening out. Nice and parallel. And then I'm going to cue you with like the term shins in, knees wide. So when we think shins in, you're energetically drawing your shins towards one another and energetically knees wide. And I'm not saying keep your knees wide or your shins like together. I'm saying it energetically so that you're engaging your legs while you are in chair pose, because we don't want to be buckling in. We don't want to be opening wide. Okay? Let's do this. So go ahead and, I'll do it facing forward. Root down into your foundation, strong legs, strong core, shoulder blades on your back. Inhale your hands high. Exhale, sit deep into chair pose. Hands can be out in front of you, open wide, or at your heart center. Think shins in, knees wide. Sit a little deeper. Lift and spread your toes to activate through your legs, through your core. Breathe deeply, sit a little deeper. Little deeper. Trust your strength. It's okay if it burns a little or if you're a little shaky. Release your hands behind your hips. Root down to rise. Slowly, 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 slowly. Open through your heart. And slowly sit back into chair. Flow with your breath. Hands behind your hips. Root down to rise up slowly, slowly, slowly. Rooting down to rise up. You can really feel it through your legs. And sit back. Deep, deep, deep. Hands at heart center. Trust yourself. And then forward fold. Nice work. Drape your upper body over your lower body. Shake your head yes and no, then yes again. And inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, reverse your swan dive, rise all the way up to standing. And exhale your hands to your heart center. Beautiful. Step to the top of your mat. Root down. We're going to start here in Tadasana, mountain pose. And we're going to move through a flow. I'm going to move us from Warrior 2 through Triangle. And then we're going to play a little bit with Half Moon. So if you've done this before, you know where we're headed with Half Moon. If you haven't, a couple ways you can do that. You can use a block to have out in front of you. So when we move into Half Moon, you can bring your hand down to your block. Then you'll be lifting your leg up. If you're near a wall or a door that's very strong and sturdy, you can also bring your spider fingers to your wall. Pretend there's a wall here. Bring your spider fingers to your wall, and that can be your support. So, yogi's choice of what kind of prop you would like to use for this flow. Go ahead and pause and then return with whatever props you need. All right, pause here, breathe deeply. Inhale your hands high. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Reverse your swan dive, rise all the way up to standing. Exhale your hands to your heart, lift your left leg, high knee, step back into crescent lunge, and meet in Warrior 2. Warrior 2, back foot is at a 90-degree angle, parallel with the short edge of your mat. Front knee over front ankle. Notice that your hips aren't jutting forward, but drawing them back. Root down with your feet, set your foundation, strong legs, strong core, shoulder blades on your spine. Warrior 2 arms. Turn your gaze over your fingertips. Breathe deeply in Warrior 2. Reverse your warrior. Bringing your right arm over alongside your right ear. Left arm comes down your left leg or behind your back into a bind. Bring your right elbow to your right knee, drawing your left arm over your left ear. And then back to reverse warrior. Draw forward, elbow to knee. And then back to Warrior 2. Lengthen through your front leg, coming into triangle pose. Have a micro bend in your front knee. Draw your torso forward, left hand to left hip. Bring your right hand to the outside of your right knee and let it hover. Pausing in triangle pose. If you'd like to go deeper, bring your hand down to your mat or down to your block on the outer edge of your right foot. Open through your heart. Shoulder blades on your spine. Extend your hand forward. Extend your fingertips toward the sky. Turn your gaze toward your fingertips. Breathe deeply. At any point, bring your left hand back down to your left hip. Keep your front leg extended in triangle. Then inhale, reverse your triangle. And come back into Warrior 2. Clasp your hands behind your sacrum, strong core, root down. And soften your heart towards your mat, coming into Humble Warrior. Inhale, rise up. Warrior 2 arms. Let's transition to Half Moon. Left hand to left hip. Grab your block. You can hold your block or bring your hands to your wall. Draw forward, stepping your back foot forward. Bring your block down to your mat. Root down, then lift your back leg skyward. Stay open through your heart. And when you're ready, extend your left arm skyward. So right, if you wobble or fall out of Half Moon, take a moment and then step back in. Breathing deeply, engage your toes. And then lower your left hand to your hip. Step back into Warrior 2. Beautiful. Take a breath here. Breathing deeply. And then windmill your hands down to your mat. Root down. Step back. Downward facing dog. Bend your knees as much as you can. Look at the top of your mat. Hop or step to the top of your mat. Forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, reverse your swan dive, rising all the way up to standing. And exhale your hands to your heart. Beautiful. Second side. Root down. Tadasana, mountain pose. I'm going to go to the other side of the mat, just so that I'm facing you this time. Root down. Inhale your right leg up this time. Step back into crescent lunge, and then open up into warrior two, second side. You know where we're headed this time. Check your alignment. Warrior two, what's your back foot doing? Is it parallel with the back of your mat? Where's your front knee? Is it over your ankle? Strong legs, strong core. Reverse your warrior. Side angle, bringing your left elbow to your left knee. Extending your right arm over your right ear. Reverse your warrior. Warrior two, extend through your front leg, coming into triangle pose. Draw your torso forward, right hand to right hip, bringing your left hand to your outer left knee, or grab your block on your outer foot. Bring your hand down to your block. This helps extend your arm to the ground. Draw your right hip back, open through your heart. Extend your right arm toward the sky. Turn your gaze toward your fingertips. Breathe deeply in triangle pose. And inhale, rise up, reverse your triangle. Exhale into warrior two. Clasp your hands behind your back, humble warrior, and soften your heart toward your mat. And inhale, rise up into warrior two. Let's move into half moon, right hand to right hip. Have your wall or your block ready. Walk your back foot forward a wee bit. Lower your hand down to your block or to your mat. Lift your back leg. Stay open through your heart. Shoulder blades on your spine. Strong core, strong legs. Engage your toes. Then extend your right hand skyward. If you wobble, if you fall out, that's okay. Play with half moon. And then exit the same way you entered this pose. Right hand to hip. Step back. Warrior two. Breathing deeply. Turning your gaze over your fingertips. And then windmill your hands down to your mat. Downward facing dog. Pause here and breathe. Walk your dog out. And then lower your knees all the way to your mat. Nice work, everyone. All right. Go ahead and step back into down dog. When you're ready, you can move through chaturanga. You can move through child's pose, yogi's choice. If you're moving through chaturanga, take 2 to 3 breaths. Breathing deeply. And then meet back in downward facing dog. Walk your dog. And then draw your chest forward into plank pose, shoulder blades on your spine, and lower down to your knees into tabletop. And sit back onto your heels. We're going to take a moment to pause on our heels. This is really great for your ankles. Sometimes, even if you can take 30 seconds to a minute during your day to sit back and give your ankles and your toes a bit of a stretch. And maybe each day add another 5 seconds or 10 seconds. And then when this starts to be a little bit much, move into hero's pose. Grab your block, place it between your ankles, and then lower your sits bones down to your block. You can always double up on your blocks if you want to sit a little bit higher, if that feels better for your body. Or if you don't want to use a block at all and it feels best to lower your sits bones down to your mat, you can do that as well. Your ankles and feet are coming to the sides of your block or the sides of your hips if you're seated on your mat. Hero's pose, pause here and breathe. And if you want to move back to kneeling, set your block to the side. We're just going to go back and forth for a few moments. Sitting on your heels, giving your toes and your ankles a nice stretch. And then lower back down to hero's pose. And then rise up again, one more time. Breathing deeply, softening through your eyes, softening through your jaw. And last time, lower down to hero's pose. And then gently remove your block. All right, nice work, everyone. Beautiful. Root down, coming into plank pose. Meet in downward facing dog. Inhale your right leg high. Draw your knee to your nose. Lower your foot between your hands. Then heel toe your foot to the outer edge of your mat. Lizard lunge. And you can create a little more movement by rocking forward and back, opening to the outer edge of your right foot, giving your hip a little opener here. And then heel toe your foot back to your mat, root down, lower your shin to your mat. So you're bringing your right knee to your outer right side of your mat, pointing your toes, shimmying your foot back, lowering your left knee to your mat. Root down to rise up, bring a block out in front of you and rise up into pigeon pose. If it feels better to add a blanket under your left knee, add a blanket under your left knee. And then play with bringing one hand to your hip at a time and then both hands to your hips. So you're really strengthening through your legs, rooting down, strong legs, strong core, strong pelvic floor, shoulder blades on your spine, shining bright through the crown of your head. Into pigeon pose. Take one more breath here and softly lower down to your mat. Bringing your forearms down to your mat, your head down to your hands or to your mat, creating a little pillow with your thumbs. Stay even in your hips so you're not slouching one direction or the other. Then on your next breath, gently rise back up and lower down to your sits bones. All right, we're going to move into fire log. So bring your shin at a 90-degree angle. Then we're going to bring your left foot over your right knee, over to your right side. So you're kind of leaning on your right hip. And then lean back onto your left sits bones. So your left ankle is over your right knee, and your left knee is over your right ankle, and you're sitting on both sits bones. Root down. You might have a gap between your left knee and your right foot, so bring a rolled up blanket or your block and place it to fill that gap. Sit tall, shoulder blades on your spine, fire log. Shine bright through the crown of your head. At this point, you can close your eyes or lower your gaze and return to your intention. One more breath here. And gently, softly open your eyes. Let's exit this pose in the same way we entered, setting your block to the side, leaning over to your right, rooting your left foot into your mat, then bringing your left foot back over and transitioning back into downward facing dog. Beautiful. Second side, inhale your left leg high this time. Draw your knee to your nose. Lower your left foot between your hands. Lizard lunge. Heel toe your foot to the outer edge of your mat and move forward, back, creating a little more openness in your hips. Going to the outer edge of your left foot. And then heel toe your foot back to your mat. Transition to pigeon prep. So lowering your shin down to your mat, bringing your left knee to the outer edge of your mat. Lowering your right knee down to your mat, pointing your toes, rooting down. Bring your block out in front of you. Rise up. So get strong through your legs, through your core. Root down to rise up, bringing your fingertips to your block, and then playing with bringing one hand to your hip, and then both hands to your hips. Breathe deeply here. And with one more breath, lower down to your mat, down to your forearms, making a pillow with your hands, placing your head on your hands. Take one more breath where you are, then rise up gently and come all the way down to your sits bones. Fire log, second side, opposite. So bring your left shin to be 90-degree angles, or it's even with the long edge of your mat. Bring your right foot over your left knee, root down, and then lean back over, bringing both sits bones down to your mat. Right ankle over left knee, right knee over left ankle, and then fill the gap using your block or a blanket, rolled up towel. Root down, stay engaged with your legs, long spine, shoulder blades on your back. You can bring your left hand to the pad of your foot, right hand to your knee, hugging in. Lower your gaze or close your eyes and return to your intention. Take one more breath where you are. Softly open your eyes and let's exit this pose the same way we entered. Leaning over to your left, root your right foot into your mat. Set your block to the side. Step your right foot over your left leg and transition back to downward facing dog. Bend your knees, look at the top of your mat, hop or step to the top of your mat. Forward fold. Nod your head yes, shake your head no. Nod your head once again. Then inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, reverse your swan dive, rising all the way up to standing, meeting your palms above your head, and exhale your hands to your heart. Transition to wide leg stance. Bring your feet wide, point your toes toward the corners of the long edge of your mat, root down, get strong through your legs, core, long spine. Inhale your hands high, and move into goddess pose. Bend your elbows, bend your knees. Make sure your knees, the structure of your knees, are moving in the same direction as your toes. If they're not, kind of move around, make sure that you are aligned appropriately. Strong core. Let's add a little bit of core here. So strong legs, strong core, strong arms. Wiggle your fingers. Then draw your torso over to your right, back to center, over to your left, back to center. Do that again. Moving side to side. One more time. Flowing side to side. Then rise up to your tippy toes, lower back down, and rise all the way up. Exhale your hands to your heart center, point your toes toward the top, to the long edge of your mat, heel, toe, your feet toward one another. Okay, we've made it to our peak pose. This is one of my favorite poses that we usually do with every sequence. It's Malasana squat. And I'll give some different variations, but this pose is really great for hip openers, heart openers, releasing and engaging all parts of your body. It's been a really helpful pose for me if I'm on a long road trip, and I need to take a break at a rest stop or something, I go into this Malasana squat. If I've been studying and sitting for a while, if I've been binging Netflix for a while, or even on a long hike. So I really recommend this pose, and there's different variations, different bus stops for everyone. So go ahead and grab your blanket or your towel, roll it up. You can also roll up the back of your mat if you're traveling and you don't have a blanket as well. I recommend starting with having your heels on your rolled up blanket or towel as you get used to this pose, and from day to day it's going to change what you need. Some days you might need your towel rolled up higher, sometimes maybe lower, sometimes maybe you'll only be on your mat, but it really depends on the day. So take notice of what your need is. Your feet are a little wider than hip distance apart. You can have your toes pointed forward, like parallel, or you can have them open, your feet open wide a little bit more. That's okay. Root down, strong legs, strong core. Inhale your hands high. Exhale, sit back as if you're sitting in a chair, but bring your elbows to your knees into skier's pose. This is bus stop A. Pause here. This is your pose if this is what feels good for you. So stay in bus stop A, variation A, for Malasana squat. This is skier's pose. If you want to continue, lower your hips toward your heels. And this is where you want to take notice of what kind of props you need more support in, okay? So if your heels are not touching anything and there's a gap, then roll up your blanket or your towel a little bit more and situate. If you feel like you're way too high and you don't need that much support, then lessen your roll or go all the way down to your mat. You want to have a long spine. You don't want to be like hunched over and feeling like you're falling forward. So if you have all the support on your heels and you still feel like you're falling forward, then you can also grab your block and place it behind your booty, and that will help lengthen your spine. So start here. So bus stop B. Bus stop A, variation A is skier's pose. Bus stop B, bring a block behind your booty and your sits bones. And then bus stop C is without the block but with support. And I guess variation D would be not using any of the support and bringing your heels down to your mat. But you want to make sure your heels are supported. You don't want to feel like you're rocking or tipping. Elbows are between your knees. You're hugging your elbows into your knees and your inner knees back into your outer elbows. Shoulder blades on your back, shining bright to the crown of your head. Malasana. There's different variations of Malasana. Maybe we'll get to that later this session, but for now, let's pause here. I'm going to show you a few little flows that you can use anytime. So heart opener, you can open by extending your left arm up and back, and then bring it back to your elbow, and then extend your right arm up and back to your elbow. So flow with your heart opener. And then hip openers. For hip mobility, this sometimes looks a little bit like easier than it actually is. These are pretty challenging mobility flows. So pause, know what you want to do. It takes time to get used to this, to get used to the feel of it. So what you can do is you can also use a block and have a block out in front of you to help with balance. You're going to lower one knee out in front of you down to your mat, and then bring it back up. Oh, little tippy, a little rocky. Then lower your left knee down, and then back. So you don't have to use your block if you don't want to. Lower one knee, back. Lower your other knee, and back. And then go back and forth. And meet back in Malasana. Beautiful. The next hip mobility flow, bring your spider fingers out in front of you, lower both knees down to your mat. Then back to Malasana, then lengthen your legs and bring your hips high. And then back to Malasana. So knees forward, back to Malasana, hips high, back to Malasana, and flow back and forth. And then, of course, you can do a little bit of each flow. Beautiful. To end our Malasana peak pose, let's place a block under our booties. Pause here. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Return to your intention, taking 3 breaths. Softly open your eyes, gently release your hands, release your block, and come all the way down to your sits bones. Setting your props to the side. Let's cool down, so go ahead and grab your sweater or a blanket. Get cozy as we move toward Shavasana, our last pose of the day. Lower all the way down to your back body. Coming into bridge pose, feet are hip distance apart, knees bent. Root your upper arms into your mat. Fingers, robot fingers are pointed skyward. Use the strength of your glutes, your pelvic floor, your core to root down and then rise up, lifting your hips skyward. Take one more breath in bridge. And then lower your hips back down to your mat. Heel toe your feet mat distance apart. Open your arms in T pose. Windshield wiper your knees to your right. And then over to your left. And then back to center. Happy baby. Lift your feet off your mat. Bring your feet into a wide pose. Bring your hands behind your knees or at your ankles, or clasp your thumbs with your fingers, your big toes with your fingers, and then sway side to side, giving your lower back a little massage. And then gently release your feet and move through any other pose that would feel good for you. If there's a pose we did not do today that you'd really like to do, go ahead. And if not, move toward Shavasana, corpse pose, extending your legs, moving your feet mat distance apart, placing a blanket over your hips for more groundedness or under your upper legs for supporting your lower back. Extend your arms beside your side bodies and then soften your eyes and your jaw. Release your shoulders and your hips. Soften the backs of your knees and the backs of your ankles. Letting your foundation support you. Returning to your regular breath. You can stay in Shavasana as long as you'd like, or follow along with my cues, letting your breath awaken your body, wiggling your fingers and your toes, stretching your arms overhead, and curling over onto your right side. Use the strength of your arms to lift into seated, bringing your hands to heart center. Each of you are worthy of love and belonging just as you are. I encourage you to offer yourself your intention and that same intention to those around you. From my heart to yours, namaste. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining Anytime Yoga. I'll see you next time.